This time I want to play a little bit with colors and the color data type. And I want to create something called gradient. I'm gonna show you here what I want to achieve. If this is our screen here, imagine we have some color here at the top, maybe red, and some other color here at the bottom, maybe green. I want to fill the whole screen with colors, and I want to transform this top color slowly into the bottom color. So what I'm going to do is draw lines here from the top down to the bottom. If our screen has 500 pixels wide and 400 pixels tall, then I'm going to draw 400 lines. And the color of these lines is going to be slowly changing from red to green. So we will have a nice effect here. So let's go back to our program here. And program for now is just very basic. We have a setup and a draw. We are defining the size of the screen. And we are also telling processing we want to use the HSB mode, hue, saturation, and brightness. And I'm telling processing that I want to define my colors with numbers between 0 and 100. By default is between 0 and 255. So let's declare at the top here two color variables. This is going to be color C1 and color C2. And I add the semicolon at the end. And now here in our setup, let's define those two colors. C1 is going to be equal to a color. And we have to enter here some hue, saturation, and brightness. Which kind of hue? Well, I'm gonna just pick a random number between 0 and 100. So we don't have any idea of which hue we're gonna get. The saturation, I want to have a saturated color and a bright color. So this is gonna be a bright, hopefully happy color. And then I'm gonna define here the color C2. C2 is a color, also a random hue. I'm gonna also give it a saturation of 100, but I'm going to make this one darker. So remember, these are two different random colors. So maybe one is red and the other is blue, or maybe both are blue, but just one is brighter than the other. Just to see which two colors we got, let's draw two rectangles. I'm gonna draw one rectangle at the top of the screen and the other at the bottom. So rect, this will start at the top left corner. It will have a width equal to the width of the screen. And let's just give it a height of 20 pixels. I should define first which color this rectangle should be. So I'm gonna say here fill C1. So I'm using the first random color to draw this rectangle. And then I will choose the other color, fill C2, and draw another rectangle that starts at the left border of the screen. It starts at height minus 20, so this is 20 pixels from the bottom of the screen. It will also have the full width of the screen and 20 pixels high. And we can run this program and see which two colors did we get. So in this case is this kind of blue and down there purple, or purple and brown. So we can get any two random colors. Nice. Now to transform the top color into the bottom color, we're gonna need a function called lerp color. It's here. It's a funny name. And it's a very simple function that takes three parameters. It takes two colors, so we have that already, C1 and C2, and then the amount. This amount is a number between 0 and 1. And it defines how far are we between these two colors. If we use a value of 0, we would get the first color. If we would get 0.5, we would get the color which is right in between these two colors. And if we use a value of 1, then we would get C2. If we use other values, then we get some point between those two colors. Now that we have read about this function and that we have tested these two colors, I'm gonna get rid of our rectangles. And let's make a for loop to go from the top to the bottom of the screen. So we'll use a for int y is 0, while y is less than the height, increase y by 1. So now we have this y variable, which will increase from the top to the bottom of the screen. And for each of those values, we should draw a line. So I'm going to draw a line that goes from the left border, which is 0. Y is the distance from the top, and then width. So The second point is on the right border of the screen, and again the same distance from the top, y. Okay, so if I'm drawing a line, before drawing the line, I should define the color of the line. Stroke. And here we need some new color, new C, I'm gonna call it. So new C is a color between C1 and C2. To calculate new C, I'm gonna use this function we just discovered. So I'm gonna say here, new C is lerp color C1, C2, and now I need here a number. A number that should be between 0 and 1. I can call this n, and just as a first version, I'm gonna just declare this variable here at the top, n or float n is 0. And we have there this n, and then inside this loop, I'm gonna say n equals n plus 0,01, or I can also type n plus equals 0,01. So now we know that the variable will start at 0, and it will increase slowly. We don't know how high it's gonna go. We don't know if it's gonna stop at 1 or not. So let's run the program and see what happens. I forgot now to declare here this new C variable. So I'm gonna say here, this is a color variable. Color new C is equal to this lerp function. That's an interesting effect. We see this kind of repeated color patterns down here. Let's run it a few times and see. That's also nice. It's actually some kind of error. The problem is that n is going over 1. We know that n starts at 0 and that for each line, n is increasing by 0,01. So after 10 lines, we know that n is 0,1. After 20 lines, is 0,2. After 30 lines, is 0,3. So when y reaches 100, so that's when we are drawing the line number 100, at this point, n will be 1. This is the maximum. So after that, n is going past 1, and then it's making these strange things. How could we restrict n to having values between 0 and 1? Well, we could add an if statement, but that would be kind of a bad solution. The best solution is to use map here. So we can say that n equals map, and we are going to be mapping y, and y can have values between 0 and height, and we want to have values between 0 and 1. It's as simple as that. So we're just converting this y variable into an n variable. The y variable has this range, can have values between 0 and height, and our new variable n can have values between 0 and 1. That's exactly what we want. So now we can get rid of this float variable here. We don't need to increase this variable anymore because n increases together with y. So now if we run, and because I deleted the declaration of the variable n at the top of the program, then I have to add it here. I have to say float n is equal to this thing. So there is our nice, beautiful gradient. Every time I run the program, it calculates a new one, makes up some random bright color and a darker color, and it transforms one into the other. These vertical gradients are nice for making, for example, sunsets or skies, when you have different shades of blue. In this case, we are using random values, but you could enter here any color you want. You could use the color selector and pick 2 colors, enter them here, and then just run the program and see this first color transforming into the second.